So after the record was done, the song just felt so good. And the more we tweaked it as far as like with the mixing and mastering process, right? We did like maybe like 10 passes of mixes on that record before we eventually got what we wanted. Yeah, and then we probably did maybe another 5 different mastering passes on it before it was where we wanted it to be.
Awesome, dude. Well, great to see you again. Like I said, thanks for doing this.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Of course. So you know the drill. This is about you and your journey in music. We already got that story, but I'd love to kind of just recap it a little bit and obviously talk about the Grammy nomination and everything you've done since the last time we spoke.
Definitely. Let's do it. Let's dive into it.
Cool, man. So born and raised in Chicago, right? From what I remember. Cool.
Yeah.
What was that like? Tell me about Chicago again.
Chicago is an interesting place, right? I mean, you know, you have that segregation aspect of things, that we're known for being the most divided city in the country, or one of the most divided cities in the country. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, which, you know, was a rough time for me growing up in Inglewood, growing up in what some would say would be extreme poverty. But, you know, I was always insulated by my family, by family life and structure, and by being in the church and having those values. So I don't think I really knew how much my family was struggling until probably a little later on in life. When I got a little older, you know, you start seeing people with things that you don't have and you're wondering why. And then it all really starts adding up.
Right. Yeah. It is interesting how that happens. Like you're like, you don't even realize kind of the difference. And then it's like, oh, wait, how come that person is now driving a car or what, you know, whatever.
And I'm still on the bus.
Right. Exactly. You're like, but okay. So I remember you talked about being, you know, growing up in the church, and how did you get into music? Was it through the church? I can't remember.
So my family has always been deeply rooted in music, just in general, just always a love for it, always a passion for it. I distinctly remember my grandmother, who used to travel. I think I recall telling you this during the time of the Green Book era, which was during like the 1940s-ish, around that area. But, you know, even though that was her reality, she didn't let it stop her from being able to achieve some of the things that she liked to achieve. For my sister, she's on Broadway. I have other family members who sing, and it's just always been just a big part of my family.
Yeah, I remember you talking about your grandmother. She would like tour, right, and play cities that she like wasn't
really supposed to be.
Yeah, she wasn't even really allowed to be there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
all
so
around,
crazy.
all around the United States. So very dangerous times. But you know, my grandmother, she had a lot of courage, and I just respect that so much. And it gives me the drive, because I think in my head, like, if she could do that at a time when it was 10 times more difficult, then surely I should be able to do it too.
Yeah, I mean, is she still around? Or
no, unfortunately, she passed, but she passed back in 2004, 2005.
Okay.
So
I wasn't sure
a
if she
little
could
while
kind of
back ago,
see
but her
your
spirit,
career. Yeah.
her spirit lives through me.
I love that, man. Well, so tell me about, so you got into music, and when did you start songwriting? I can't remember.
So I started songwriting. One could say that it was at a very early age, just because, like, if you're sitting in the car and you're listening to music and you're coming up with your own lyrics and things like that, that's kind of like that telltale sign of becoming a songwriter, right? And I can recall doing that at a very young age, maybe 5 years old. But if we're talking about learning about song structures and actually pinning down what people would consider to be a legitimate record, I was doing that probably just before high school. So that was me just kind of experimenting with what it meant to be a songwriter, song structure, how to build a record out, et cetera, et cetera.
Was there something that drew you to that? Like, why did you want to kind of pursue that?
So I always was trying to be like my older brothers, right? So, and I think that's like, when you're one of the younger siblings, you're always trying to keep up, always trying to keep up. So my brothers dabbling in that made me want to do it. It just pushed that desire in me to want to do it too. And then that coupled with when I was in high school, having that first show, having that first performance, feeling those pre-performance jitters, and then getting on stage and seeing how excited everyone was and hearing the crowd scream and just feeling that reaction and absorbing that energy. That was when that passion, that fire was fully ignited in me. You know, it was like adding gasoline to an already lit fire.
Sure. And was that, you said, in high school?
Yeah. I was in high
Wow.
school.
What grade were you, like a senior?
I was a freshman.
Freshman year. Wow.
Yeah, that
So
was
you're
freshman,
performing in
but
front of the
once
whole
again,
school freshman year.
Yeah, I had older brothers. So one of my brothers was a
Protected.
junior, the other one was a sophomore. Here I am coming in my freshman year, and they're like, "Hey, we want to do this performance. We want to do this show fall of my freshman year of high school." And it was just before Christmas, and I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." I think I was about 13.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was an experience, long lasting. That's one of those core memories.
Yeah. Did you were you the only one that continued with it? I mean, you talked about your sister being on Broadway, but did your brothers keep going with music or no?
Yeah, so we were in a group for a little while. And then, you know, we had our differences with one another. I think that tends to happen, especially around that age range of being a teenager, right?
Mm-hmm.
We eventually went our separate ways. And one of my brothers, ironically, he went into the military. So he was in Korea, and he was singing in the band and singing for aristocrats and politicians and things like that out in Korea. My other brother, he ended up joining a cover band. So he was like doing songs, cover songs of like NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, all the rest of that stuff. It got really popular throughout the Chicagoland and Midwest area. But eventually he ended up stopping doing that. But so as it stands, I'm the only one who's still kind of continuing that path.
Okay, that's awesome. I'm sure they're super proud of you and excited for you and everything you've accomplished. I mean, the Grammy nomination, everything else.
Yeah, for sure. That nomination, I know the last time we spoke, that was potentially on the table.
Yeah,
but
I don't think we talked about it at all. I think you just, yeah. And then I saw that, I was like, whoa, that's incredible. Because you had I'ma Say It. That's what we talked about last time. So yeah. I mean, we'll just, I guess you kind of just fast forward here, because you've already really, I mean, told your story to me, so people can dive back a few months and check that one out. But so you had I'ma Say It out. So tell me about, like, kind of picking up in September, like, to now. I mean, a lot has happened. You got a new record. You played to like 100,000 people, and you know, you've got this Grammy nomination. So tell me about the new song and kind of give me the, you know, history of what's happened in the past, 6 months or so, 5 months.
So first, let me start by saying, Adam, a lot can change in a couple of months, huh?
Oh, dude, right?
Isn't that crazy?
I know. Yeah, it's wild.
Crazy. But so let's just take it way back, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's take it back to when the record Gimme Love was recorded, which eventually ended up being the record that I'm nominated for a Grammy for. So it was recorded in 2021, in the fall of 2021, pushing into 2022. And that's when the music video was shot too. The song came out in March of 2022. And we had continued to push that record for the entire year, knowing that we were going to at least submit it for Grammy consideration. Okay. So we submitted it for Grammy consideration. Just, you might as well take that shot in the dark, right? Just submit it and see what happens. And, there's a lot of politics that goes behind that. You have to make sure that you're making the voting body aware of the actual record, and, hopefully they put their ears on it. They like it, they vote for it. So we kind of crossed our fingers and we were like, hey, you want to know what? If the record gets nominated, it gets nominated. If not, then, we gave it the best shot that we could. So in between that time, I went out to Uganda in Africa, Eastern Africa, with Eddy Kenzo. He invited me to his festival. And I said, hey, you want to know what? I might as well go. I've never been to Africa before. I would love to go. I would love to experience what it's like. So it was my first time in Africa. I ended up doing that show with him. First time performing in front of 100,000 people. My expectation was not that there were going to be 100,000 people there. That was insane.
Well, real quick, I want to talk about that. I just want to know, how did your relationship with Eddy form? Like, to be able to connect with him and have him say, hey, come out to Uganda and we'll play this festival I curated. Like, I mean, that's pretty wild.
So I met him in 2021 at an FYC event, a 4-year consideration event, which is basically what you do when you're politicking to say, hey, listen to my music for Grammy consideration.
Gotcha.
In the midst of that FYC event, we ended up sitting right next to one another. And we just instantly hit it off. We felt each other's vibes. We liked it. We were like, you want to know what? We got to go into the studio and we got to make music. So the very next day, we went into the studio. We were waiting for the sound engineer because he was late. And I was working on an Afrobeats project anyway. So he was like, hey, I want to play this beat for you. Maybe you might like it. He played the beat that would eventually become Gimme Love. And when I heard it, I'm like, I kind of like the song. I mean, I kind of like the beat, but I'm not 100% sold on it. I want to hear something else. My wife and manager, Angela's like, no, this is the record. You have to record something to it. And needless to say, that was a very, very wise decision on her part to push to get that record recorded. We went into the studio. The whole song was a freestyle. So it's not like we went in and we wrote something. It's just literally, you put the headphones on and you're just basically saying whatever coming to your head and whatever melodies are coming into your mind. And that's what we did. I think that there was a lot of energy, a lot of synergy in that room, which kind of manifested its way onto the song itself.
Is that typically how you go into a studio situation? Is just kind of freestyling off the top of your head?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
Wow. That's so fascinating that artists can do that to me. It's just like, I would need to be so prepared and like rehearsed, but to just be able to go in there and kind of listen to something and then go, right? And then to have it be a Grammy nominated song. It's so
insane,
wild.
Right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Do you go back and like tweak it, or is it just like, here we go? And you go and then you kind of like can pen some stuff down and see.
Yeah, there may be small tweaks along the way. There may be just small tweaks along the way, but for the most part, like what you do is what you get, right? And I think it's all about like capturing that moment and capturing that essence of that moment, because I'm a very strong believer in energy, and I'm a very strong believer that just like energy can't be created or destroyed, right? But it can be stored. And I think that energy can be stored in sound recordings, because if you're thinking about sound and you're thinking about things like speaking something into existence, or you're thinking about manifestation and things like that, and as we think, so we are. So if you're thinking about it in that way, and then you're taking that and applying it to a sound recording, then that's why music can make you feel different things, because the energy of what you're trying to convey is captured into that sound recording. So you have the songs that make you feel happy, the songs that make you feel sad, the songs that may make you feel like you can conquer the world. But why? Because that energy is stored in there. And when it is played back on wax, or now played back through speakers, right? Through the digital era, those vibrations are coming into your space. So I feel like if you're going to write something, or if you're going to do something worthwhile, sometimes it's best just to capture the energy of that moment. And what better way to capture that than through just that organic feel of that freestyle.
Yeah, I find that so true. And I've talked to other artists that were recording, during the pandemic in their closet, or they did like hang a microphone up and they'd just be trying to record demos. And then those demo vocals would end up making the album, because it was like trying to recreate the energy and kind of that passion behind what you were singing the first time, maybe, or the first take. It's hard to translate it again, in a studio setting. Like, okay, you now do what you just did here in this, soundproof room with this expensive microphone, but maybe it doesn't translate,
right,
again the second time, because you're trying to recreate something you had already done.
Exactly.
In a moment you had already had.
Exactly.
Wow. Exactly. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so you work with him, you freestyle the song, and then when it's done, you know it's okay. This is a great tune. Like, at what point do you say, let's submit it for a nomination?
So after the record was done, the song just felt so good. And the more we tweaked it, as far as like with the mixing and mastering process, right? We did like maybe like 10 passes of mixes on that record before we eventually got what we wanted. Yeah, and then we probably did maybe another 5 different mastering passes on it before it was where we wanted it to be. And afterwards, when we filmed the video and everything kind of came together, it was like, whoa. And everyone's reaction was that way. Every time they saw the video, they were like, oh my God, this video is amazing. The song is amazing. I just love everything about it. So we knew going in that we had a very, very strong record. But we didn't know whether or not it would be Grammy worthy and or at least get nominated, right? So we went into it just thinking like, hey, we submit, we see what it does. If people feel the same way we feel, then potentially we'll get the nomination.
And then we
got the nomination.
Yeah, you end up getting the nomination. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So what was that call? Was it like a phone call, an email? Like, how do you hear the news that you are nominated for a Grammy Award?
So I was in Africa. I was in Uganda.
Oh, at the time that you guys received the news?
So, which is why this is so crazy, Adam.
Okay.
This is insane.
Okay. So tell me about getting to Uganda, and then obviously we'll get into the call. So, okay. You said he just hit you up and said, hey, do you want to come play?
Right.
I mean, that in itself is pretty wild, right? To make the decision.
Yeah, and I think Eddy and I, like, we had built a very strong relationship with one another during that time frame of when the record was recorded versus when he was actually doing his festival. So it was always rumored at that time that potentially I would be coming out there, but it wasn't written in stone. So I was just kind of biding my time, you know, doing my own thing, still doing my shows here in the States and all that stuff. But when I got that phone call, ring, 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 hey, do you want to come out here? And do you want to play this show? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's do it, you know? So I was really excited about it because, once again, I had never been to Africa, never been to Uganda. So that was a moment for me just to be back in the motherland, to be back where my people have originated from, being the continent of Africa. And then to be in Uganda and to feel the love of the Ugandan people, especially since the record had grown since its release. So it was like, you know, people just were very excited to see me, very excited that I was there. Then for the show to come about where now my expectation was not to play in front of 100,000 people, but then for that to happen was insane. Stands, the show ends, Eddy's like, hey, the Grammy nomination, we don't know if we're nominated, but we do know that is going to be announced in the next couple of days. I know that you were supposed to fly back to the U.S., but you should extend your stay just in case we get nominated. You can celebrate with me. So I'm like, you want to know what? I'm going to do that. So I extended my stay. I'm in Uganda. We set this room up where, and we recorded the whole thing. So Eddy set this room up where now, like, we're watching it on this big screen TV, all that stuff. John Legend announces Matt V featuring Eddy Kenzo, Gimme Love for best global performance, right? And we just lose it. We're all jumping up and down. We're screaming. We're hugging one another. I'm hugging my wife. I'm hugging Eddy. We're falling to the floor. Everyone's crying.
It was
a moment. It was a moment.
And you captured this moment, you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is special. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when you get a chance, check it out because it's on my Instagram.
Okay. I'll have to watch it. I didn't catch it. Wow. That's amazing. I mean, to set that up and be like, okay, well, we have a shot. Let's just see what happens. Yeah. And then to hear that news, I can't even, that probably had to be one of the biggest moments of your life.
I was insane. Like, I could just feel it took my breath away. Like, I didn't really know how to react. You know, it's like, how do you plan for something like that? Especially when it's not an expectation. It was something where it's like, hey, we're going to give it our best shot. We're not expecting to get the nomination. So then to get it, it's just like, oh my God, what? So we spent a good hour or so just losing our minds.
Oh,
when
yeah.
when we finally came back down to earth, uh, Eddie's like, we got to go celebrate. So obviously now we're partying all night. We're hopping from club to club to club to club to club and just popping bottles. And it was insane. It was insane.
Oh my gosh. And then it was right after you had played this huge show to 100,000 people. So
Exactly.
talk about like, oh my God, man.
Like
That's awesome.
you can't make this up, right? You
Yeah.
can't, like, even if you wanted to, you couldn't. Like, first time in Africa, first time in Uganda, first time playing in front of 100,000 people, and first time being Grammy nominated. Like, what?
All in such a short time span too. I mean, how long were you out there for?
I was out there for, I think, 5 days.
Oh my God, man. That's insane. Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
That must be so wild though, to travel all the way across, the world and land in a place you've never been, a country you've never been, a continent you've never even been on, and perform to 100,000 people that know who know your song and know what you're about. Like, I mean, that in itself, to me, like, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I know you remember you had some success in Japan, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
So it's like to have these countries outside of the United States that love your music, not that they don't hear, but you know what I mean? Like, places you've never been, and they're just like loving your record. That must be such a surreal feeling.
Yeah, it's a humbling experience, because like, that's what you want as an artist, right? But it's like you fight so long and you work so hard for it that sometimes it feels like it may not ever become a reality, because the journey just gets so long, you kind of get lost in it. So, and then you see all these things online, but to have it translate into real life, like, there's just no way to even describe what that feels like. And I sat and I reflected when I came back to the US, and I was like, wow, my music has been heard across this entire world. Like, here I am, little old me from Chicago, Southside, born and raised, coming from the ghettos, not really knowing what my future would be. And then to turn around and now know that my voice has been heard by millions of people across the world, and how profoundly that may affect people just in different ways. Like, I don't even know. I'm not even able to touch these people in order to even know, like, what impact did I have on your life? Was this record your wedding song? Did this record get you out of a bad space mentally? Was this something that was a core memory because it was something that was played at some special family event, or whatever the case? So I'm like the background, or the beating drum, the heartbeat of people's lives. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, like, this is amazing. What a blessing and what a gift to have to give to the world, I was very humbling perspective and feeling.
Yeah, it's like showing up somewhere that you've never been, and like I said, across the whole world, and having a fan base there. Like, the internet is so wild in itself, but I can't even imagine what it's like to really affect people in that way, where you can go somewhere you've never been before, but people know you and know your music.
Right. And I knew that it was real when so Eddy showed me a fantastic time in Uganda. Like, I'm talking riding around in blacked out cars, police escorts. These guys are like speeding through every like highway or side street, and all the cars are moving out of the way. Like, we're basically riding around 3, 4, 5 cars deep. It was insane. But but one of my driver, there was this car, I guess it's like kind of like a bus sort of thing, but it's like what they use is their version of taxis. And he rolled the window down because there were a whole bunch of women sitting like in that bus. He rolls my window down, and when he does, the girl says, "Oh my God, Matt B!" The whole bus goes insane. They start screaming, "Ah, ah!" And I roll the window up, and I'm like, bro, don't ever do that again.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Yeah, you go there and you're like a beetle or something.
Right. So I was like, bro, don't ever do that again. So that to me was just like, whoa, like it just goes to show like you just never know. Like you're sitting here just living your life and just doing the music and hoping that it sticks and hoping that it's impacting someone in a positive way. And then to go to another country that you've never been to before and to experience something like that is insane. So I say that to say, I have never even been to Japan. And I know I told you that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I remember.
and
You
I've never
saying that.
been to China, but I'm doing well in that portion of the world as well. So I eagerly await when I actually touch down
Oh
in
man,
the
it's gonna be like
country of
that. The
Japan.
same thing,
Yeah,
right?
you know?
Do you have plans to go? I mean, anytime soon, or do you want to go and play there? I mean, that just seems like
100%.
a, yeah, kind of a no-brainer.
100%. And now that, you know, the pandemic is kind of unwinding and
Sure.
things are getting back to normal for 2023, that's on our radar that this year we're going to finally make that happen. And we're going to go to Japan. We're going to go back to Africa. We're going to go to China, and we're going to have fantastic shows and finally get an opportunity to meet those fans and have that interaction.
That's so exciting, man. Congratulations. That's how cool, the fact that you know, all that you've accomplished in like the matter of, you know, months since the last time we spoke is so I love it. I love seeing it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so you'll find out at the Grammys, I guess. Like, do you get to attend? I mean, I would imagine you get to attend and all of that. Like, how excited are you for that?
Well, I'm super excited. I have attended the Grammys before.
Okay.
So because I've been a member of the Recording Academy for just about 7 years now.
Wow. Okay.
So, so I've attended 3 times, I believe, either 3 or 4 times, because I attended once in LA, I attended another time in New York, and I attended again in LA. Oh no, in Las Vegas. So, and I know it's weird because it's supposed to only be in LA, right? But
Right. Yeah.
but for I think like the 60th anniversary, because the Grammy started in New York, and they had that one in New York. And then because of the pandemic, they weren't able to secure the Staples Center, which is now Crypto.com Arena. So they had to do it in Las Vegas last year.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, I do.
So now they're back.
Yeah.
So now they're back in LA. So I'm super excited to attend, because while they do have 2 red carpets, I have not been able to walk the main red carpet. And this is going to be my first year walking the main red carpet and being around my fellow music celebrity, whatever you want to call them, peers. And then, you know, just being able to absorb that energy and being able to see what that feels like. I'm super excited about that. Then because I am nominated, I also get to sit on the floor at the Grammys, which is going to be insane.
Yeah.
Because initially, you know, if you're not nominated or you're not as notable as other people, then you have to sit higher up in the wings.
Yeah.
But now I get to sit on the floor. So that's going to be insane. Now as far as when I'm going to know if I actually won the Grammy, that's going to be during the Grammy pre-show. So they have 2 shows.
Oh,
the first show, yep. And then that show is about an hour. And then after that, you walk the red carpet and then you go into the main show. So I'll know before the main show whether or not I won the Grammy.
Wow. So. Yeah, because they do some awards at the pre-show, right?
Yep.
And then they do more of them. And you only see a handful, like the televised ones. You probably don't even see all of the main show, I would imagine, on TV.
Yeah, because you know they have the commercial breaks and everything like that,
and they got to cut in and out to different things. So.
Exactly. So about 70 some odd % of the actual Grammys is in the pre-show.
Wow. Okay.
And
yeah, because there's a ton of awards, right? And then when it comes to the televised one, it's album of the year and you know the
big, they call them the big 5, or the big 3. Yeah.
Right. Which makes okay. But that's so crazy, man. That's so cool. Imagine having that. Just I couldn't even fathom. That's so cool, dude.
And even if I don't win,
you're there. You're on the sheet, right? I mean, that's it.
Exactly. So I already feel like a winner just because I'm Grammy nominated.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that I don't want to win, but at the same time,
right.
but at the same time, if I don't win the actual award itself, that's fine, because my career, I have a very long career ahead of me.
Mm-hmm.
And to even just be in the door this early as an independent artist, no major label backing at all, and to be able to make it this far is amazing.
Right.
And I also was just honored because the Grammys, they interviewed me about it.
Wow.
So that
I did see that article that they did for you, which is
and they
cool.
did an entire video. So like they asked me about it. They came to my house. They sat down and filmed me in the at my home studio and all. It was really fun. It was really fun. Cool. It was a really cool experience. So to have that level of support from them obviously means a lot to me as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, dude, I love what you're doing. I'm so grateful. I mean, so grateful you wanted to chat with me again, but so happy for you. And hope you win. That would be so cool. But the fact that you've got this nomination and everything you've achieved in just these past few months since we talked, that's just so cool. So cool.
For sure.
I have one more question for you before I let you go, Matt. I want to know, I asked you this last time, so maybe we'll see if you said the same thing, but if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Well, since it's off the top of my head, hopefully I don't say the same thing, right? But if I do,
who cares?
If it did, then it shows I'm consistent.
Exactly. It's great advice if you say it twice. And exactly. That's funny. Go ahead.
I say, other than the whole spiel about like believing yourself, believing your talent, all the rest of that stuff, things happen in threes, right? So, and having a good team around you and that good foundation around you goes a long way. And I even think about, and the reason why I say things happen in threes, I'll share just a very brief story, and hopefully people can get something out of it. When my wife and I got married, we said that we wanted to have 3 children. And we were hoping that we had 3 children, and that those 3 children, that it would be 2 boys and a girl. And that's exactly what we got. 2 boys. Oh, wow. 2 boys and a girl. When I was working with Bryan-Michael Cox, that happened in threes as well, because I met his cousin who didn't end up introducing me to him. But prior to that, Angela had reached out to him through social media, and that didn't end up working out either because he never responded. And then the third time, it was when someone who was a little closer to him reached out, and then I ended up doing all those records with him. I submitted to the Grammys 3 times. The first time I submitted, it was for my EP, No Days Off. The second time I submitted, it was for my album, Eden. And then the third time I submitted, it was for Gimme Love, which now I'm Grammy nominated for. And I can go on and on and on, but I'll just give those 3 examples ironically, right? And I say that to say, don't give up, keep pushing, keep working hard. Sometimes things don't happen in the way that you want them to or in the time that you want them to. But for me, I'm a strong believer that things do happen in threes, and maybe it doesn't take that first time or that second time. It's that third time that's really going to make all the difference. Bringing it backward.